Hello. We prepared interview series about coaching approaches in different countries as Coach Magazine Global. Our first stop is Australia. Enjoy the conversation.
I'm so pleased to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Seda. It's lovely to be here with you.
Would you like to introduce yourself for us, for our audience, please?
Sure. My name is Emma McQueen. I was born in Western Australia, and now I live in Melbourne in Australia with my husband and my 3 daughters. And my background is HR, and I coached the executives at World Vision Australia, and I worked with World Vision International as well. And I've been running my own business for the last 5 years, my own coaching business, which has been amazing.
Cool. Yes, thank you. And could you please explain the coaching profession in Australia? Like, how long has it been known in the country? Is this profession legally recognized?
Yeah.
Like those kind of things.
Well, coaching's been around a while. I think Australia was a little bit behind the US and the UK from people being open-minded enough to hire coaches. And I think over the last little while, we've seen a bit more of a groundswell on people wanting coaches and it being okay to say they have a coach. I think 15 years ago, people had coaches, but you didn't hear about it as often, whereas now you hear about it a lot, especially those organizations that are keen on investing in their talent and their succession planning, and organizations who want to help to wrap some support around their leaders or their managers. And it is professionally recognized. There's a few ways you can get accredited as a coach. I'm accredited by the Institute of Coaching and Executive Leadership, so IECL, and we also have ICF as our main accreditation body here in Australia as well. And so there's everything from a life coach through to a business coach or an executive coach. So there's a lot in Australia now, which is great. It's great to see the industry really coming alive.
Yeah, from people's perspective, how do people see coaching profession nowadays? How was it before? Like how people recognize coaching in the country?
As in organizations?
Individuals and organizations, yes.
Yeah, I think most recently in the last 10 years, I think that individuals have really embraced coaching. Prior to that, it was probably more organizations who were finding coaches, putting them on panels and not forcing them, but handpicking talent to have coach. Mm-hmm. Now, I think, especially in my market, which is women who have their own businesses, now they're realizing that they need that extra support. And so the individual is more prepared now to pay for that coaching, and also to have that coaching in order to lift their leadership, to lift their revenue, to lift their results, to lift their mindset, whatever it is that people have hired a coach to do. But I think it's becoming more and more where individuals are using their coach as kind of their secret weapon or their superpower to really just get ahead of the competition.
So can we say that COVID has a positive effect on this coaching profession?
Oh, has COVID had a positive effect? Maybe. What I know before COVID, I personally was doing a lot of face-to-face coaching. And when COVID hit, of course, we couldn't do that. We were in the most lockdown city in the world, here in Melbourne. And so we had to move everything online. So now all our work is online. I think that's been an advantage for coaches because I think you can still get the results online, face-to-face. I think also, has COVID had a positive impact? Maybe people have needed extra support. Actually, probably where COVID has helped industry is our mental health industry, because I think a lot of people have really struggled with their mental health in COVID. And we had 6 or 7 lockdowns, and that meant we couldn't leave our house, or we could only go 5 kilometres outside. It was ridiculous. So I think people may have hired coaches because of that, just the extra support. But I also know that our mental health system is breaking now because people really need the help. So maybe coach, it's really hard. There's a fine line, isn't there, between knowing that someone actually needs a coach or knowing that you need to refer them onto a psychologist. And what I noticed when I was in COVID is I was referring a lot of people to counselling or psychologists because they needed that support versus a coach, but they may have thought they needed a coach to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for being a coach in Australia, what kind of trainings are there? Like what kind of schools and universities maybe?
Yeah. Universities less so that I know about anyway. Normally the coaching in Australia is a standalone accreditation of some sort. You might do some coaching in university, but normally it's a standalone. So it's either through the IECL or ICF or private organisations who run coaching. But there's a lot to choose from. So you just need to pick the coaching school that you think is the best for what it is that you want to do eventually. I think that's the trick, though. I think if you want to work in the life coaching industry, you'd probably go to ICF. If you know you want to work with professional services, you'd go to IECL. So I think even though ICF has their full accreditation, and some of them have pathways to each other, so it can get a bit complicated.
And do you know any of these schools use any kind of écoles like Jung type of coaching, Erickson type of coaching? Any of those écoles do they implement in their trainings?
Yeah, most of them. I think it depends. Some people have their own intellectual property that they use for coaching. In Australia, I know in level 1 of IECL, they literally use a GROW model. Do you know the GROW model?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's literally just the GROW model, and then as you go up the levels, it's nuanced to whatever someone needs. And as you keep going up the levels, it talks about organizational or group coaching and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it depends. I think because of my HR background, I'd used a lot of models already. So the GROW model was a really basic model. I already knew the model. So actually I just nuanced it to make it a bit trickier for me to learn rather than just go, okay, I know that. Because I think sometimes as coaches, we can tend to use a model that we like, but it can overcomplicate things sometimes. So I think in my experience, simple is better to not confuse your coachee.
Yeah. So you mentioned ICF and IECL for the organizations. How about the membership in these committees? Do they provide some privileges and facilities to their members?
Yeah, ICF especially do. So ICF, everyone who wants to be accredited, ICF have different levels of accreditation based on your experience and your expertise. And ICF have chapters everywhere, all over Australia, all over the globe, because they're global. And so they've got a lot of members. They put on a lot of member events and a lot of training and a lot of education as well. My dog keeps coming in and out of my door, which is why I keep moving.
It's okay.
There you go.
So you said they are organizing webinars, some events for the coaches, and and how about ethics? Are there any certain, implementations of ethics for coaches and supporting coaches? Yeah,
and normally, depending on where you've been, when you sign up to ICF, you also sign up to the ethics of ICF. But they do a lot for their members, ICF.
Yeah.
Probably the same with where you are, yeah?
Yeah, it depends. I'm in the UK. My team is in Turkey. We are, having these coaching styles from different countries, and it changes from countries to countries.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So are there any chambers, unions, anything that supports coaches, that kind of institutions, organizations, or foundations?
No, I'm sure there are, but not that I know of.
Do you do any volunteer work as a coach, or are there any, group things doing voluntarily? Like in the UK, they helped NHS workers during the pandemic about their mental health with ICF and EMCC coaches. And are there any type of things like that in your Australia?
Maybe there are, but all the pro bono work that I do, I find the pro bono work myself. So rather than I work with an organisation to do pro bono work, I've actually got some special areas that I do pro bono work in. So for me, it's with young female entrepreneurs who are just starting out their business. I do pro bono coaching for them. I do some pro bono coaching for a marketing academy here in Australia. And so I think it's up to each person as to how much they actually volunteer their services. But I don't know of something in Australia that is an umbrella for volunteer coaching.
Yeah. So are professional titles such as ACC, PCC given importance in Australia by the customers, like, companies, and what they compete each other with?
The ACC, PCC titles, people wear them proudly on their LinkedIn profiles or wherever. I don't put it on there because I don't think it's that relevant. So I don't think it's relevant, but I think there are probably some organisations, especially if you're on a panel, where you have to be PCC or ACC or all of those kind of things. I don't do panel work because I don't love panel work. I think coaching is more about a relationship and fit. And if I'm just sitting on a panel and someone selects me from my picture, what do they really know about the fit and how we're going to work together? So I avoid panels. I'm a rebel.
Okay. It's a choice. So, there are some companies who have their own coaches. They hire, as a HR policy, they hire their own coaches internally and train their workers, employers, in coaching wise. So, do you know, are there any kind of companies like this have their own coaching, employers, or do they hire the coaches externally mostly?
Yeah. I think this has shifted a little bit. I think a lot of organizations are now moving to a train the trainer or coach as leader as coach kind of model, where you're a leader, you have a team of however many people, and then they train you to coach them as well. I also think that it comes in ebbs and flows. So if you asked me 10 years ago, I would say all the coaches are external. And then if you asked me 7 years ago, I'd say, they've all gone in-house. So it flicks between the two. But there's a lot of work for external coaches if you want the work. So that kind of tells me that organizations haven't quite nailed the coaching model yet, or how to separate maybe from being a manager to being a coach or being a leader to being a coach. I think sometimes that can be really tricky as well. And I know because I did that and I used to coach my staff a lot, but I know that wasn't the norm. Yeah. Okay.
So we talk about mental health and people need more. Are there people who are mixing coaching with psychotherapists and counseling?
I'm sure there are. I don't love that. I think it's a really different skill set. And because I've been coaching for so long, I can see it coming a mile away. But I will also say to someone, if I'm having a call with them, so we offer a clarity call, which is a half an hour call with me to see if there's going to be a fit. That's how I know. I won't work with anyone that I haven't met. And if I can see that that's what they need, I'll talk to them about, hey, I'm wondering if you need this versus this, or maybe you need this versus this, or I'll say to them, you actually don't need a coach. Here's what you need. I'm not sure how many coaches do that, to be honest. I think the majority of coaches would do it, but I think sometimes if you don't necessarily have the nuancing, you might get into a coaching relationship and then realize you're in a counseling relationship, which is not great. Yeah. So I think it's just on the actual coach to have some emotional intelligence around the fact that, is this coaching or is this counseling or is this psychotherapy? In which case, where do you want to be? And I think it's also difficult because there are a lot of psychologists who are coaches. And so they can mix those two things together relatively easy. But I think that blurs the line for clients as well.
Yeah. So, you know,
Kind of have to either have your psychology hat on or your coaching hat on, and you need to agree that.
yeah, for, you know, making this business more known, more recognizable, the coaches have to support each other, like the psychologists do around the world. So what are there any ideas of yours, like to support each coach, you know, locally or around the world? What can we do?
I think having good referral points, so you know who you can refer to. So I've got a list of psychologists that I refer my clients to. I've got a list of mental health specialists that I refer my clients to. I have built those up over time. And so I think it's having those things at your fingertips so that you can still be helpful and still serve your potential client or your client. I mean, I have some clients who have me as their coach and they're also seeing a psychologist. And that's okay, but they're doing two different things with two different people. But I think if we have good networks, then I think we can refer work to each other and support each other in a way that's sustainable.
Yeah. And in that way, how do you see the future of coaching?
I think it's only going to get bigger, you know. I think we've seen a big turnaround. It's still not as big as in the US. I still think we've got a way to go. I see a lot of coaches now rolling out group programs, so group coaching, because I think it can be more commercially viable. And I really like one-on-one coaching. That's my sweet spot. So I stay in that wheelhouse, but I also have a lot of calls with people who say, I did this group program and now I've grown out of that. I've done this group program and now I need some one-on-one support. So I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah. In addition to that, would you like to add something else? Would you like to say more?
No, I think I'm good.
Good. So thank you so much for answering all my questions. It was very lovely to have you here. I hope we will, you know, have some more projects in the future with you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Seda.